Today I want to go back and visit Monster Rancher. Monster Rancher 3 specifically because it's the one that I have and can afford, but I want to talk about the series as a whole because it was one of the best Pokemon ripoffs, and I think it had one of the most unique and cool mechanics in video games ever that just kind of lost to time. Monster Rancher really focused on the battling of monsters, kind of like Pokemon did, but rather than just the fight itself, it focuses on leading up to the fight. Raising up their life, raising up their stats. What are you going to feed them? What are you going to give them nutrition? Like, are you going to be overly harsh on them? Are you going to be overly nice to them? Are you going to spoil them? And all those things accumulate to the battle and reflects those choices. And I know that that's not for everyone. I know the nitty-gritty life simulation sort of thing is really boring to some people and it's really exciting to other people. So it makes sense that it wasn't nearly as popular as Pokemon since it doesn't have that mass appeal. But I absolutely loved the game. And it was popular enough that it had a manga, an anime that ran for I think 2 seasons, like 80 episodes. To me, I remember it being amazing, but I was a kid, so I'm sure that going back and watching it, it's not all that great. But it does have like an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is pretty impressive. It also had that late 90s, early 2000s really cringy rap. Check it out.
I was transported to a faraway land, into a world where monsters rule. I played the game like an ace. Now we're in this place to save the monsters from the evil Moo.
Also, naming your main villain Moo was just an awful, awful decision. But since we're talking about the music, the game itself actually had some much better music. So once you start the game, rather than having to go like catch your first monster or be given your first monster, you have to spawn your first monster using the coolest game mechanic that I'm going to show you right now. You have to use data discs to revive a monster. And how that worked was you literally had to put a CD into your PlayStation and it would use some sort of algorithm. I don't even know how it works to this day, but it would decide what monster you get based on the CD that you put into it. And if you put that CD in, you'd get the same monster every single time. So you had to save that CD and know, okay, this really rare monster comes off of this one CD, so I need to write that down and know where it comes from, so if I need it again, I can use it. And I know a lot of kids, or I guess their parents around that time, had big CD collections or DVD collections or some sort of media, so there was a lot of things to scan. I remember spending hours, because my parents had a big music collection, we would just sit there and scan CD after CD after CD, trying to find the rarest, strongest monsters that would come off of those. In the video example we have here, I put in School of Rock with Jack Black, and we got some sort of singing monster that's usually a cat, but it's like a water variant, so it looks like a turtle. The cutscene's a little bit longer than I remember, so we gotta suffer through this for a second. Here we go, there it is. There's the turtle monster that comes from School of Rock. I also put in the Titanic DVD box set and got this Naga-looking snake thing. I think it's an ice variant, so I guess sort of fitting for the Titanic. Once you bring them home, it's time to start training the monster. On the first of every month, you have to select a meal for them, and it's a pretty interesting mechanic. Like, it's very primitive, but you can see what they're going for. Basically, every food has a favorite bar and a nutrition bar, and your monster wants to, of course, eat their favorites, but you want to make sure that they eat something that's nutritional so they don't get too fat. And so it's an interesting little mechanic. In reality, it really doesn't do all that much. I'd like to see it more fleshed out, but again, PS2 game, so they were going for something. And then you get a chance to raise your monster. As you can see, you can pick different options that give you different things, such as this one, picking mushrooms, gives you a little bit more power if you succeed. And once you succeed, either with normal success or great, you get a little bit of a power up. Now, this is just the starting area, so it's very straightforward, but as you unlock different zones, you get a lot of more interesting options where it's like you can get a big boost to your life and a big boost to your power, but you actually lose other stats for doing that. So you have a lot of give and take on options for, I want to have big increases here, but I'll lose stats elsewhere, or I can take small incremental changes here and there, but I don't lose anything for it. Again, interesting choices. At the end of the day, there is a meta and there is always going to be a best option, but for a kid who didn't care about the meta and didn't read up on guides, it was really interesting to get to watch my monster grow in a way that I wanted them to grow and develop. Every 3 months, you get this special event where the Ran comes to life and you're able to increase your monster in other ways. Basically, you buy a thing that lets you stay here for however long. I selected 400, and you can go around and explore the map and you get little goodies and bonuses, or you get the chance to level up moves or even teach your monster new moves. Again, this gives you a lot of ability to customize your monster and a reason to raise the same monster over and over and over again. When your monster passes away from old age, because they will pass away from old age, you can pass those stats on to another monster, and as you've learned new abilities with them, other monsters can learn those same abilities as well. So it's really cool to watch your monsters develop, and if you raise the same kind of breed of monster over and over and over, you can see those stats continue to go up and up and up, as well as different abilities and personalities and so much in the game. For a PlayStation 2 era game, it was really innovative and really cool. Now let's talk about the actual battles themselves. So as you can see in the battle screen here, there's a festival that happens at the end of every few months where you can rank up and go from rank E to rank D to rank all the way up to rank S, where I'm at right here, right now. And this is where you kind of get to see where your monster has grown from. These are like the big rank up matches that show you other monsters that should be like at the peak of that level, and you can see how well you've been training them. You can also choose to give your monsters directions in the fight, or you can let the AI battle for you, but I never recommend that because the AI is absolutely terrible. You can see on the bottom of the screen there, you have some different buttons to click. Those are your different abilities, and you have to be in different ranges to use different abilities. So you can see there's far away, medium range, or close up, and most of my abilities are close up abilities, so I have to be up in their face to use those abilities, but it gives you a really interesting mechanic to play with if you build characters around long range, or maybe they cover all spreads, or maybe they're only close range and they have nothing at far range. Again, you have those choices, and that's really cool. You have intelligence-based abilities, the one that are in green that lower their guts, which is their ability to use other abilities, or you have physical attacks that deal way more damage but don't hurt their guts as much. There's a lot of interesting choices here. Again, there is a meta. This has pretty much been solved. You build speed and power and just wail on enemies, and you typically win because both the accuracy and dodge mechanic are built into your speed. So if you have a high speed and a high power, you're pretty much unstoppable. This is literally the first monster I've ever raised in the game. I'm already at the end of the game in the S class, but he didn't quite make it through this tournament. Spoiler alert. But the fun of the game isn't just in playing the game, it's exploring all the different monsters and getting to see how they interact and how they work and raising them up. Monster Rancher features a huge amount of monsters. Here's a screen grab that just shows a few different breeds. I believe there's 30 breeds in total for the game, and each one of those breeds can have different variants and rare variants, so there's a lot to explore for, again, a PlayStation 2 game. When I first played the game, I loved it. Like I said, I'd spend hours with my brother just putting in different CDs and getting different monsters. Coming back to and visiting it now, there's a lot of that nostalgia, and trying to rate the game or review the game without the nostalgia is darn near impossible because it's just there. But I did find coming back as an adult that the AI is absolutely terrible. Again, I should not be able to make it to the end of the game just on my first playthrough, right? You're supposed to raise up your monsters and get them to that level. It's supposed to take a lot of work, and I was already there. And the game is supposed to feel like it has all these things to do and all these options, but again, since I already knew the meta, okay, speed, there wasn't really a need to do a whole lot of the other things. And you realize you're just doing the same thing over and over again, right? It's, okay, I rest for this week, and then I'm going to train up your stat, and then we're going to rest, and then we're going to train up these stats, and then we're going to eat the meat, and then we're going to rest, and then we're going to train up these stats. And it gets a little repetitive. But that's mostly because I'm coming at the game as an adult who knows everything. I've already experienced it. I think if you've never experienced it before, it will feel vast and open, but it does get repetitive. So if, again, you don't enjoy those kind of games where it's a lot more simulator, you're going to get bored with this real fast because it's not as huge as you would think. There's also some real frustrating things, like the clock still counts down when you use one of your moves. So a big strategy is to spam really long moves that have low cost so that the enemy can't attack nearly as much. But when they do that to you, it's real frustrating when you have ability to use your abilities, like you have the guts, what they call it, to cast the ability, but you've been locked into this long, boring cutscene every time because they're trying to stall you out. That gets old real fast. One of the most interesting things about the game, though, in an age where everyone's emulating games, is I don't really believe you can emulate Monster Rancher. Like, you can get the game, right? You can get the ROM. That's not the problem. The problem is the ability to insert other discs into the game to spawn monsters. As far as I know, they have not figured out how to make that work with an emulator, so you can't bring in different monsters. It is one of the old games that you truly cannot emulate. You have to really get the physical disc, the physical media, and the ability to read other discs in order to get the full Monster Rancher experience. Now, I do believe they released some of the games on Nintendo Switch, and I think instead of having to insert CDs, it has you just like use a catalog, which is a good solution, but again, it's not the full experience. But if you don't happen to have a PlayStation 2 or 3 hanging around, it's good enough. And there you have it. I think that's all there really is to say about Monster Hunter. It was a flash in the pan. It was super popular, trying to compete with Pokemon, but like everything else that tried to compete with Pokemon, it fell into its own little niche of people who still enjoy it, but it never got the popularity I feel like it deserved. If you happen to play this game, tell me what your favorite monster you found on a CD was and what CD it came from. If you've never played it, what CD would you like to see what monster spawns? Thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a blessed day.